When you set a little micro goal, daily micro goal inside your prospecting time, you can feel really good when you've done that. Happy Taco Tuesday, coming at you, Sales Ascender, from the heart of the digital underverse here in Las Vegas. Sean Malone, the CSO of the Sales Ascender. So pleased to be with you. It's time for another high ticket tuna. By the way, if you find any of this stuff valuable, please smash that love button and share this to somebody else who might get some value from it. But the question came in from Jamie P. And Jamie says this. He says, Sean, I have 2 hours booked for prospecting each day. By the way, that's amazing, Jamie. I have 2 hours booked for prospecting each day, but when I start, I always get distracted and do other things. Do you have any advice? Wonderful question. Really valid, right? I know a lot of people, especially in the entrepreneur world out there, that have this thing called shiny object syndrome. You know what I'm talking about. That's that time when you're just like, I'm doing something. Oh, shiny object or squirrel or whatever you want to call it, right? The very easy way to solve this problem, Jamie, inside of those 2 hours that you have booked, what is the defined parameters of what you're doing inside there? See, most people, when they start prospecting, what happens, they fall into this trap of, oh, I'll just block out 45 minutes of time on my calendar. Now, that's the first thing to do. If you don't have dedicated time on your calendar to prospect, put a block of time on there. It's not hard, and start living by it, right? The moment that I started living by the calendar, I was so fearful of always living by this calendar. And the reason I started doing it was because my coach, Alex Sharfin, told me, he said, yo, if you start living by your calendar, you will get time back in your life. And I was like, no, that feels restrictive. It was just like counterintuitive in my thought process. But then I decided to do a test. So I did this test for 2 weeks. The next thing you know, I blocked my calendar. And after 2 weeks, I come out of this thing and I'm like, holy cow, like, I have so much free time and I'm just living by my calendar. So the first thing is, if you don't have time blocked on your calendar for prospecting, put a little block on there, whether it be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or whatever time, because conversations lead to sales. If that's what you're trying to make, your job is to literally start new conversations. That's it. Just be social. In that 2 hours of block time, Jamie, look and dissect each minute. For me, when I go through my prospecting, here's what I do, because this might help you. So I also have a 2 hour window blocked every single day for doing prospecting. And usually it's earlier in the morning. And the reason it's early in the morning is because the world's asleep. I don't get a bunch of message noise and trash coming into my inbox all the time, and I can literally just stay focused for a period of time. Actually, I do two 52-minute times. The reason I chose 52 minutes is because like science have proven that your body needs blood flow every 52 minutes. So literally, like, I have a timer that goes ding and I get up and I stretch or I do something. So my first 52-minute session, like literally what I do is the first couple of minutes, like I can't, because it's me and I've practiced this thousands and thousands of times, is like, I can't just dive in and start doing my prospecting activity. So what I do is I do like a buffer. So for the first 5 minutes of my prospecting session, what I do is I'll literally like pick up the book that I'm reading right now, or I will listen to a podcast, or I will find some sort of like inspiration. Sometimes I go to the inspiration stuff on YouTube, but I mean, who hasn't watched a million of those things, right? But yeah, I got to get my brain moving. And how I get my brain moving is I have to feel it come up with at least one idea, right? And so when I read, that's why I read. So like I'll pick up a book and I'll start reading in the first 5 minutes of my prospecting session here, and I'll come to this thing and I'll say, boom. And all of a sudden I was like, I'll find an idea in a book and I'll be like, great, how can I apply this to my business? And then I figure out how I could apply this one idea or concept that I'm just trying to learn into my business. Now, when I've done that, that's my trigger for me to say, okay, my brain is warmed up. It's like going and playing golf, right? Every professional golfer has this thing called a pre-shot routine. Pretty interesting concept. They'll choose the club out of the bag and they've got it, and they've got the ball and where they're hitting the ball to in the hole. And they'll like, you know, like what I did when I play golf is I watch the shot go down, take a couple practice swings, do a little wiggle, and then I'd hit the shot. And I do that every time. That's my pre-shot routine. Same thing with your prospecting. Have a pre-prospecting routine, right? So what do? I read for the first 5 minutes and I have something that triggers a thought in my brain that how I could apply it to my business. Then I move into prospecting. Next step, for the remaining part of that 52 minutes, now it's going to be like 48 minutes of that time for me. I will say, okay, my micro goal or my micro commitment is for me to reach out to 20 new people. That's how I do it. So in the first hour of my prospecting, I do a 5-minute warm up, and the remainder of that time is to finish 20 conversations. Here's the good news. If I get those 20 conversations started within the time it takes 50, 47 minutes, whatever's left, I'm done with that hour and I can move on to my second hour of prospecting. That's the cool part, right? When you set a little micro goal, daily micro goal inside your prospecting time, you could feel really good when you've done that. Because think about this. Like, imagine if you did the same thing. You got your brain working. You're like, cool, I can do this. All I got to do is bang out little 20 conversations. You jump on social and you start starting these conversations. 20 minutes later, you've got all 20 done. Maybe it takes you a minute or 2 minutes to do them. Now, what do? We move on to the second hour. What's the second hour? Well, look, I started 20 conversations, but I've been doing that every single day. That's my starting conversation activity. Now I got to do this nurturing part of the activity, which is the second part of my hour. So for the following 52 minutes, after I've done a little stretch, I'll get up and then I'll say, look, now that I've started all these conversations, I'm going to go back and I'm going to read through all of my messenger messages that people have responded to me. I'm going to send some notes back to them. I'll spend about 20 minutes doing that, see if I can catch up there and do some responses there. And then that's it. Like, if I can get through 20 messages on both sides, I know that I've started 20 new conversations and I've continued as many conversations as I have going. And look, if I don't have the amount of conversations that I need to in order to hit the goals that I've got for the next week, for example, if you're trying to put 2 calls on your calendar next week because you think 2 new calls would do really good for you, use the rule of 10%. Very simple in sales, right? So you say, hey, if I need 2 calls, then I should reach out to 20 people. Just 10% of 20 is 2. That means I can at least have 2 good conversations. Now, remember, it goes suspect, prospect, opportunity on a calendar. So 20 conversations a day times 5 days is 100 in a week. I'm pretty confident that anyone that does that much type of reach out, you will put 2 new calendar appointments on your schedule for the next week. Guaranteed. You know, there's a lot of other people that teach a lot of other methods, but again, our job, right, is 7 to 12 touches. Like, how do you put 7 to 12 touches when you first start speaking with somebody to get them on your calendar? Why 7 to 12? Because it breaks down the barriers of trustability and likability, so the prospect doesn't have their guard or their shield up, and then you can have an easy conversation when you do get on the phone with them. So we designed our system to have 7 to 12 touches and to go through a certain process and flow, and then they get on our calendar, right? So that's the move, but that's very simple. And you can do it. I could do it. Everybody can do it. If you are at that place where you're like, hey, I'm getting distracted in my thing, what advice do you have, Sean? Look at that block of time that you have for prospecting. Dissect every minute or every 10 minutes or every little segment. Set micro goals. And then when you hit the micro goal, move on. Because when you move on, like, look, I start my day this way. And the reason I start my day, because it gives me a tremendous amount of momentum. When I get through my first 52-minute session in my prospecting, I feel good because I'm like, man, I've done it. I've done my job. I know it's going to give me a return. I just know that activity brings me big returns every time. And then I do my second hour and I feel even better. I'm like, dang, like, look at all the response that I'm getting. That means my messaging sequence is really good. That makes me feel good. And that's how you start to get the feel goods, the serotonin, the oxytocin. I think the oxytocin is the one that fires the hardest there. And all of a sudden now you're about the rest of your day. You can jump into a call. You can be excited. You can train. You can coach. You can do whatever it is that you got to do. But you know that you get that prospecting time done. Because we can't deny that every single business needs a prospecting mechanism or a prospecting system. If you don't have one, schedule a call with me right away so we can talk about how we could put one in your business really quickly. You know, definitely that's what I'm here for, is to support and rally for all the sales ascenders because I love you. And that's going to end today's session. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm so pumped. Smash that like button. See you later.